Yes, ma'am. Hey, everyone. My name is Nick, and I am a grateful, recovered alcoholic. My sobriety date is August 2nd of 2020. I have a sponsor. I actually have a cabinet of sponsors because I needed a little more assistance, and I have sponsees who magically vanish when we get to step 4. But I do have sponsees. This is my home group. Old Central is my home group. I have served as GSR here for the past year and a half. I do my very best to work all 3 sides of the triangle. I'll get back to that in a moment. So, it is an honor to be asked to speak. It is actually an honor for me to be invited anywhere. It wasn't that long ago where I was not getting invitations. And in fact, if I showed up at places, people looked down at the floor and would say, "Oh boy, Nick's here." So I would like to thank Angie and Old Central for asking me to speak this afternoon. So I moved to Charleston 4.5 years ago. New York City, Italian, born and raised. Moved to Charleston 4.5 years ago. I had a lot of motives for leaving New York City. Very few of them were good. I, at the time, was spiraling quickly, and I figured if I could just get out of New York, I could leave a lot of those problems 800 miles north. So I moved to Charleston knowing no one. No one. And within 4 weeks of my moving to Charleston, there are 3 cop cars banging on my door in front of my house. I'm in Charleston a month. And I'm going, how'd the cops find me in Charleston? You know, I thought I left all those problems back in Brooklyn. And, you know, I wanted to know why they were picking on me, you know? Like, why? I mean, come on, you know, why? Because the cops have nothing better to do than to knock on Nick's door at 1 a.m. I had a process server. Y'all know what a process server? I say y'all now. I used to say yous. I used to say yous. Now I say y'all. So I had a process server camped out in front of my house. A process server, if you don't know, is someone who works for the courts, who serves you with a summons that says you must appear before the judge. So it was camped out in front of my house. So I said, I know, I'm just not going to leave the house. So I'm doing this at all hours of the day and night. Now I have a dog that I have to walk, right? So I'm literally, all right, let's go. And you know, we run out and we do a lap and we'll be like, come on, and then run back in the house. I took something with me when I left New York City and I moved to Charleston. I took Nick with me. So the fact that I was 800 miles away from the town, the city I lived in my whole life, I still woke up in Charleston with Nick. And all of Nick's baggage and luggage came with that. So I'm now, there's no way I can cover 5 decades of debauchery in 40 minutes. So I have detectives in 3 states looking for me up and down the eastern seaboard. I have detectives in New York City calling my phone. I have detectives in Charleston calling my phone, and somehow I got detectives in Florida trying to get me. So to say that my life was unmanageable would have been an improvement. And I was dealing with all of this by not dealing with it. And I was juggling. If my phone rang, I didn't answer. I just, that's how you deal with it, right? You go, oh, I'm not picking that up. And I'm juggling 3 liquor stores in Charleston. I didn't know where anything in Charleston was. Nothing. I couldn't find it. Didn't know where anything was. I knew where 3 liquor stores were, the 3 closest liquor stores to my house. And I was juggling 3 liquor stores because I didn't want the proprietors of the liquor stores to know how much I was drinking. So I go to this one on Monday, and I go to that one on Tuesday, I go to that one on Wednesday, and I go back to this one again on Thursday, so that in my mind, they were like, well, they only think I'm going through a gallon of vodka every 3 or 4 days, right? Meanwhile, I'm going through a gallon of vodka every 24 hours. There's other things involved in my addiction, but out of respect for the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm going to stick with alcohol, but you all follow what I'm saying, right? I found this other stuff that would help me drink more. So because I was drinking and blacking out. Now I'm like, I could drink, I could do this, and oh my God, I'm not blacking out. I could drink more. I became a scientist. I was, combining stuff now to not deal with the process server outside my front door and the cops and the detectives looking for me. Oh, now I got attorneys, because now I got attorneys in 3 different states. So again, unmanageability would have been an improvement. Powerless. This is not my first time trying to come into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. Back in 2007, I was court-ordered by a New York City family judge to clean up my act. And the judge was a woman judge, and she was being nice to me. She said, look, you can see your kids. My kids were, tweens. You know what tweens are, right? They were like, 11, 12 at the time. I have 2 boys. They were 11 and 12 at the time. And the judge was being nice to me. The judge said, clean up your act. Because my ex-wife, the mother of my boys, and my family was journaling my blackouts. I only had 48 hours every 2 weeks a month. So there's 31 days in a month. I only had my kids for 4 of those 31 days. And I couldn't keep it together for 4 out of 30. I had 28 days to get wasted and 4 days to just not drink. And I could not drink for those 4 days. Couldn't do it. So I would put the kids in front of the TV set and the Xbox, and I would do whatever I was doing, and then their mom would go, did you have fun with Dad? And they'd be like, well, he slept and did not feed us because oops. And she was journaling this, writing down times and dates, and then took me to, brought me back to the family court judge. And I'm thinking, you witch, right? How could you do this to me? How could you drag me back to, how could you take my kids away from me? That's my thinking at the time. So the judge was being nice to me, and the judge said, look, you clean up your act, you get your paper signed, you can see your sons. So I go to my first AA meeting, not because I wanted to. You following me? I didn't want to. I was told to. And I'm like, okay. So I go to AA back in 2007 in Brooklyn, and I go to a meeting, and I sit there, and I went to a discussion meeting, right? And I'm sitting there, and everybody's bitching and crying and moaning, and I'm sitting there going, oh, this ain't bad. right? Right? Everybody's complaining. My job sucks, my wife sucks, my car sucks. And I'm going, yeah, me too. Everything sucks. So, and then at the end of the meeting, somebody would sign my paper, and I'd leave, and I'd come back, the next day. And after about a week of that, I realized, there's no checks and balances in this room. I just asked somebody to sign my paper, and we're good to go. So I know I'm the only alcoholic that ever thought of this. I said, I'm going to sign my own paper. I had whoever I was dating at the time sign it. I'm righty. I'd sign it left-handed, right? Change pen colors. I go back to my lawyer. Look, got my paper signed. Now, somehow, magically, I was abstinent for 4.5 years. Now, I say the word abstinent. I do not say the word sober. To me, there's a massive difference between not drunk and sober. This, coming here and having a spiritual awakening, to me, is living sober. I was just not drunk for 4.5 years. I was miserable because all of what was going on outside these doors was still going on. And what I was using to cope with it was drugs and alcohol because I didn't want to deal with it. So now I don't have the drugs and alcohol. All of that is still doing what it does. And I had no escape. So I'm going to meetings, they go, meeting makers make it, 90 and 90. I was doing 180 and 90. I was going to the breakfast meeting. I was bringing the bagels. I was setting up the chairs. I was doing the service work. I was doing the unity. I was hanging out with the sober guys. We were going sober bowling. I worked two sides of the triangle for 4.5 years. You know what I never did? See that foundation? See the recovery? See this? Never touched it. It was strongly suggested to me that I go to literature meetings. And I said, what's that? And he said, well, you got to bring a book. I said, what? Well, you got to read this book. I said, I just want to go and complain about my day. I like those meetings. Like popcorn, Well, you should read this book. So they gave me a book. It was the third edition, by the way, the one I got back then. This is the 4th edition. At the time, they gave me a 3rd edition. And they said, you need to read this book. You need to read the first 164 pages. And I probably went like this. And I said, yeah, I'm good. Ego. I said, look, I'm not drinking. Maybe I'm not an alcoholic. 4.5 years. So, convinced that I wasn't an alcoholic, convinced that I had this beat, convinced that maybe I graduated, because the courts were good now, I got my paper signed. I said, I was in Toronto on business trip, and somebody was buying. And I went, I'm not even in America. So, it's Toronto vodka, right? It's different, right? It's Canada. I said, all right, I'll have one. That was it. Done. I didn't have a drink or a drug for 4.5 years. I had one vodka. It was like those 4.5 years didn't exist. I picked up exactly where I stopped and then some. Because I had time I had to make up for. Surprise, surprise, I lost my kids. They were, my ex-wife, was protecting them. Again, at the time, I just thought she was being really mean to me. She was protecting our children from me. So unmanageable and powerless, absolutely. Absolutely powerless. Could I stop on my own? No. I tried. I didn't care my ex-wife, my mother, my siblings, the church, the doctor who said, Nick, you're going to die. None of that. None of that meant anything to me. The book calls it frothy appeal. Bill Wilson calls it, I didn't care. My two sons cornered me on one of the weekends, the 4 days out of 31 that I had them. They cornered me and they said, Dad, two little boys, look just like me. They said, Dad, don't drink. And I looked at them, two little boys, and I promise you I meant it. I said, I'm going to stop. And I meant it. And I did not stop. I could not stop. I needed something bigger than Nick, if such a thing exists. I needed something, that's a joke. If something bigger than Nick exists to help me stop. Self-reliance had failed me for 5 decades. Now I come to the G word. Forget about step 4, forget about step 9. For me, it was 3. See, this place is a cult. I knew it. I knew it. You guys are going to rope me in. I grew up in a very, very rigid Roman Catholic household. I'm a former altar boy. In the 70s, I grew up with nuns and priests in the 70s, Italian community in New York City. This is as nicely as I can put it. The nuns were sadistic. I'm being nice. They would hit you and not think twice. And then you didn't go home and tell mom because you got hit again. Well, if the nun hit you, you were wrong. Now I'm going to hit you. And the priests were too friendly. I'm just going to leave it at that. So to me, in my young mind, middle school, that was God. Right? And I wanted no part of it. So the minute I got to high school, I turned my back on what I perceived was God. I want nothing to do with that. Nothing. But now, I'm back in the rooms here in Charleston, and my life is out of control, cesspool, bleak, and I don't know what to do to fix it. I was at a crossroads, again, right from Bill Wilson. I could not see life with alcohol. I could not see life without alcohol. What do I do? And something inside of me in a moment of clarity said, I don't want to die. And I didn't know how to not die. Because everything I was doing was killing me. The places I was going, the people I was with, the stuff I was ingesting was killing me. And I didn't know how to stop. So because I had run out of options, and I tried that's a long time, 5 decades. It's a long time to be pig-headed and stubborn. And Italians call it cabados. You're thick-headed. I couldn't stop. Any Italians in there? I couldn't stop. So God, I have to make a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. My will and my life. What else do I got? It sounds like everything. It's my will and my life over to the care of God as I understand Him. I had to reinvent God. I had to completely forget and erase the people in my childhood that represented God. They are human. They are people. If you cut them, they bleed. They are flawed. People by design, we're flawed. Each and every one of us. There's only one thing perfect. God. I had to rejigger my understanding of God. So I said, all right, I'm going to try this willing. I like the word willing in the big book. I like it a lot. Willing. I said, okay, I'm going to be willing. I'm going to dip my toe in the shallow end of the pool. Willing. Jumped in step 4, and I couldn't do 4, but not for the reasons you think. I couldn't do 4 because I wasn't praying, because I never did 3. I didn't have God to talk to and say, God, I need you to help me with this. I still was relying on Nick. I was still relying on Nick to muscle through 4. So my sponsor goes, we're going back to 1. I was like, why are we going back to 1? Well, I think you're having a problem with powerless. You still think you can fix it. That don't sound like powerless to me. I said, damn it, he's right. Hey, don't you hate when your sponsor's right? I hate that. I said, okay, powerless. I go back to 1. I go back to 2. Now I go to 3. And I get on my knees. And I say the step 3 prayer. I got on my knees. I said the step 3 prayer. I said, okay. You know what? You take it. I can't do it. Show me what you got. So now I go into 4. I start writing. I never in my life heard these words in the same sentence. Fearless, moral, thorough, honest, personal, inventory. I'm like, what the hell is that? What is that? All these big, scary words. What is that? I'm in my 50s. I'm like, I have no clue what that is. So I'm asking other people in the fellowship that never did a step 4 what that is. So like, it was a whole group of us that never crossed the bridge, and we're all talking about how scary the bridge is. Meanwhile, none of us have stepped foot on the bridge. And then there are men who are on the other side of the bridge going, hey, let's go. And I'm going, scared. I spend more time worrying about step 4 than doing step 4. Talk to myself out of not doing it. But you know what I had this time? I had God. I was cultivating a new relationship with a power greater than Nick. Yes, it exists. So I started 4 and I started writing. 4, for those of us who haven't done it, it's brilliantly done. The first 3 columns are like, me. You pissed me off, and I don't like you, and this is you, and this is what you made me feel like. Those are the first, right? The first 3 columns. You pissed at everybody. Your pen just goes, it was like fun. It was like, this is great. Then you turn the page, and you never talk about those people again. Now it's like, well, hey, Nick, what'd you do? And I go, whoa. Did you see what she did? Look what she did. No. What'd you do? Nick had to learn accountability. I had to learn accountability. Because my whole life, I don't care what I did. If I got arrested, it was your fault. If I'm in front of the judge, it's your fault. I lost my kids because my ex, their mom, is B-I-T, you know, right? Because that's right. That's why I lost my kid. Wasn't Nick's fault. My hands are clean. Ha ha. Nick's learning accountability. Nick's learning to talk to God. I'm making a conscious contact. I am choosing. I did a lot of things unconscious. Now I'm consciously talking to God. Daily. That's something I had to, learn. I'm way outside my comfort zone. Way outside. I tell you what, if I'm in my comfort zone, I'm probably doing something stupid. Right? If I'm in my comfort zone, I'm like, oh, shit, let me rethink this. If I am not in my comfort zone, I have to leave my old life behind so that my new life begins. How scary is that? So I'm doing my step 4, and I'm learning that I am selfish, self-centered, self-seeking. And I'm going, wow. And I'm writing all this down. And it's getting easier to write down. Like the thing I didn't want to do, I'm like, I want to do this. Let's do this. Let's do it. There was it's like a cleansing to it. For those of us who know what I'm talking about, you're like, let's get it out. Let's get it out. And I'm seeing a pattern. Nick's a-hole. There's a pattern here, right? Now I have to tell God, myself, and another human being. That's exactly how it's written. God, myself, and another human being. The exact nature of my wrongs. And it's in everything, the steps, I learned this. The steps are in order for a reason. And I argued and debated, and I was going to show you how the book's wrong, and now I'm like, no. Whatever this says, just sit down, Nick, shut up, and do it. So I sat somewhere quietly, and I spoke to God. And I read my step 4 to God. Then I sat I pulled a chair in front of a mirror, and I did my step 4 to me. And this got me ready to share my deepest, darkest stuff that I was taking to the grave while nobody was going to find out about this stuff. And now I had to tell another human being. Stuff that I was taking to the grave. So the first time I did a step 4, here's a little side note. I have done steps 1 through 12 from the beginning, like I'm a newcomer, once a year for the past 3 years. And each time I did it with a new gentleman in the fellowship. Because the first time I did it, I was like, this was too much for me to handle. I need to do it again. I did it a second time. And it's all this stuff I missed the first time. Then I did it a third time. And I was like, whoa. It's not a one and done. It's not like I took one piano lesson 15 years ago and I could play Carnegie Hall today. That's not how that works. I got to sit in front of this piano all day, every day. Right? Well, I took one piano lesson. I'm good. So I tell my 5th step the first time to another man, and when I'm done, I go, I'm done. And then he goes, now tell me what you didn't tell me. And I go, well, how's he know that? How's he, you reading my step? Did you steal my notebook? He goes, now tell me what you didn't tell me. And I went, and he shared with me some of his 4th step. And it knocked me off, you know what I mean? He disarmed me, And I went, okay. And then I told him stuff that I swore I wasn't going to, stuff that I'm not telling you. And I told him. My father was a raging alcoholic and an intravenous drug user. And in addition to that, he was an extremely physically violent man. He hospitalized my mother several times. I would come home from elementary school. This is back in Brooklyn. We didn't have play dates. You just left the house. So, right? You just left. And you went to school. And your mom goes, see you after school. And then you just get home after school. Like, no, I don't know. I lived. I survived. And so he would be, and I lived in a Brooklyn apartment building, little teeny 8 apartments, 2 on each floor. And he would be passed out in what we call a vestibule, which is like the first door you open when you're in the hall. My father would be passed out there, and I would walk over him, hoping not to wake him up to get into the apartment. And my mom's in the apartment shivering, going, is he still out there? And I go, yeah, what do you want me to do? I'm like in the 6th grade. I go, what do you want me to do? So I took on my mother's victimization. I took on my mother's fears because I'm the eldest. I'm the firstborn son in the family. I'm the firstborn. So I took that on because, you don't, I didn't know. That's my mom. I don't know. And that's my dad. I didn't know. And my mom would go, call 911. So now, a bunch of times, I would call 911, and then one day I said no. I was a kid, and I told my mom no. I said, you know what? I'm not getting involved. Imagine that. I said, you know what? This is on YouTube. I was a little kid. I said, I ain't getting involved. So I wouldn't go home. I didn't go home. I just lived in schoolyards. But I wasn't alone. There was a pack of us. There was like a pack of feral sixth graders. We just all hugged because all of our home lives were exactly the same. So that was normal. Is your dad drunk? Yeah. Is your dad drunk? Yeah. Is he beating up your mom? Yeah. Yeah, me too. Yeah. You going home? Nope. We didn't go home. We'd sit on the church steps. We'd sit on the school, the big stone steps. And sometimes we'd fall asleep. Cops would come. This is when cops were on foot. They used to be beat cops, they called them. They were on foot. And they knew everybody. Everybody knew everybody in Brooklyn. And they'd go home. And I'd be like, I don't want to go home. I don't want to go home. And he would walk me home. And I would be like, I don't want to go in there. The beatings got so bad. He hit me once or twice, but when I say the beatings, I'm talking about my mother and my father. I'm running out of time. The beatings got so bad that my mother had to leave New York. She moved to New Mexico. How do you go from Brooklyn to New Mexico, right? Like, how do you go from Brooklyn to Charleston? So she went to New Mexico because that's where that's where my grandfather lived. And my grandfather said, I will finance you to come to New Mexico. Now, I'm in the 8th grade. This is the summer between 7th and 8th grade. I looked my mother dead in the eye and I said, I am not going to New Mexico. And guess what? I did not go to New Mexico. My mother left me in Brooklyn. My mother went to New Mexico, and I slept on various couches for a year. And I loved it. I loved it because I wasn't living in that house. And I had a resentment towards my mother and my father that built and built and built through my teens, my 20s, my 30s. And this program taught me acceptance. And this program taught me that they were sick. And my father did not know, or maybe he did. He didn't have the steps. He didn't have God in his life. That's a very recent revelation for me. Acceptance. They did the best they could. I turned into my father. I never laid a finger on my kids. Never. That wasn't one of my problems, amazingly. But I also was not there for them. Hey, Dad, we got a thing on, tomorrow at school. My kids are talented musicians. We're playing. You coming? Yeah, I'll be there. So the invitation stopped. And I understand that because I did the same thing as a kid. I just stopped talking to my mother and my father. I stopped talking. Why I'm wasting my time talking to you? So now I have a list of my character defects because I just wrote them out in step 4. Right? Now I'm powerless. I know I can't fix it. We've already established all this in steps 1 and 2. I need God. Right? I did my inventory. I finally crossed the big scary bridge. You know what? If you didn't do it, it ain't that scary. Cross the damn bridge. It's not that scary. And it's really nice on the other side. So now I have to ask God to remove these character defects. Now, I thought my character defects were bullet points on my resume. You follow what I'm saying? Look what Nick can do. My self-reliance got me here. I'm self-sufficient. I raised myself from the streets. I was dirt poor, and now I got stuff. I thought these were all things to boast about. Me, self. You know who I never gave any credit to? God. I turn my back on God. God never turns his back on me. He's the reason I'm standing here right now breathing and talking to you. Because Nick wanted to kill Nick. And God said, nope. I got bigger plans for you. So, turning over all my defects of character, this is a lifelong job. This is not something I did in a weekend. I didn't go home and go, hey, God, look at this thing. Boop, you got it. I got to let him go, and that's not easy. Just sit in the car with me when I'm driving. You'll see what I'm talking about. I lose my mind in parking lots. That's my spot. He took my spot. Ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. It's character defects, right? If I put something down in the kitchen, don't touch it. Because if I go like this and it's not there, I go, where's the thing? I put it down. I'm a lunatic. I know it. But you know what? I'm aware of it now. I'm aware of the crazy now. So I go, hey, God, you got to help me with this. I got God now. That's huge. You got to help me with this. So remember that? Remember the first column in your step 4 when you write down all the people you pissed at? Right? I love that column. Well, now, surprise. See, I love when people know where I'm going. Surprise, surprise, that first column, all these people I got resentments at, I now have to make a pilgrimage to each and every one of these people and tell them where I was wrong, what can I do to make it right, and I have to say, is there anything I left out? That's an amends. What did I not just say? I never said the words, I'm sorry. That's not an amends. I'm sorry is not an amends. You know what I'm sorry means coming out of this mouth? It means go away. Oh, I am so sorry. Please go away. It's never going to happen again. Please go away. That's right? Because in addition to me being an alcoholic, guess what I am? A manipulator, a liar, a cheater, a thief. I checked all the boxes. So I got to go to New York and talk a face-to-face admission. It doesn't say send a text. Not my book don't say send a text. Maybe yours does. My book does not say shoot him an email. My book says a face-to-face admission. I've worked really hard to get to this point. I'm not going to start cutting corners now. I'm not going to half measure all of this. I'm not. Because I see results. How do you argue with results? And check this out. Other people see changes. In fact, they saw it before I did. Other people were like I'm talking to my buddies that I grew up with in New York. But I grew up with these guys. And we're on the phone, and I say, God on the phone. And I swear to you, he stopped. And he goes, what? I said, yeah, God is good. And he goes, Nick? I go, yeah. He goes, you all right? I go, yeah. I go, I'm fabulous. Fabulous. Half my friends think I'm crazy. They're right. But a good crazy. Look, sick attracts sick. Sick attracts sick. And when I'm sick, I'm looking for the sick people. Right? I'm drinking and drugging. I don't want to hang out with the teetotal. I want to hang out with the drinking and drugging people. I don't hang out with the drinking and drugging people anymore. I hang out with my family. You guys. Continue. To me, that means I'm already doing it, and I have to keep doing it. It's not a one and done. I did not get a diploma. I never wore cap and gown. I missed it. Was there a ceremony that day? Nobody invited me. I have nothing to frame on my wall. And the minute I think I got this, I'm in a lot of trouble. The second I go, I got this. Whoo-hoo. Big trouble. Big trouble. Go right back to 1. Hey, see that word? Don't lose sight of being powerless. Me. I don't tell anybody what to do. I don't give advice. I certainly don't give opinion because nobody wants my opinion. Every single morning I wake up, I get on my knees, I sit with my fiance and I ask God every morning. Every morning I say, what do you want me to do today? Not what I want to do, because Nick does stupid things. I pray for 2 things. The knowledge of God's will, and then God to grant me the power to carry that out. That's it. I used to use prayer as a lottery ticket. You know what I'm saying? Like, God, I really need that car. Like the rub the genie and get 3 wishes. Like, that's not how God works. He's actually busy. He's got stuff to do. Right? And I'm using, or of course, I'm in a lot of trouble. And then I'm like, God, I'm in a lot of trouble. Can you get me out of this? Like I'm bargaining with, you know what, God, if you get me out of this, I promise you I won't do it again. And then I get out of it and I go, I'm doing it again. Having had a spiritual awakening as the result, not a result. It's not a result. It is the result of these 12 steps. I introduced myself as a grateful, recovered alcoholic. When I used to hear people say that, when I was, early, counting days, and I hear people say, I'm a recovered alcoholic, I'd be like, well, that's an arrogant dude. She's arrogant. But it says right here on the very, very first page of the book, how many thousands of men and women have recovered. Recovered, past tense. And then, on the introduction, the foreword to the very first edition, printed in 1939. Well, what did I recover from? We of Alcoholics Anonymous are more than 100 men and women, this is back in 1939, who have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. If I never drink again, I will die an alcoholic. I will die an alcoholic. From this day, if God grants me another 50 years, I don't know if I need that much time, but if God grants me another 50 years and I do not touch a drug or a drop of alcohol, I will go home an alcoholic. But I have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body as a result of working these 12 steps, as a result of accepting God into my life, and as a result of every single one of you in this program. There's a song, I heard it my whole life. It meant nothing to me except I liked the song. It meant nothing to me, but it's a good song. I'm going to say a couple of lines from the song. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. I was blind, but now I see. Thank you all very, very much.